So about a month ago, Marvel and DC released their first crossover in about 20 years at this point, I believe. JLA Avengers was the last time they had an official crossover, and now they have come out with a new one. Now, I have talked about this on my channel before when the news first dropped, and they are doing this in twos. So they're doing one crossover, Batman and Deadpool, but they're doing like one Marvel version and one DC version. And about a month ago, the Marvel version came out called Deadpool Batman, which was written by Zeb Wells and drawn by Greg Capullo. And it's very interesting, to say the least, when it comes to the comic at hand. Now, I have my own personal copy. I got it on eBay because they're not selling it online through Comixology. So you had to go to your comic book stores, but unfortunately I do not live near one, so I had to get it online, which I feel like was definitely an oversight on their end of being like, some people just don't really have the ability to go to a comic book store near them. So if they want to get this book, they had to make an event. They had to take time out of their day to go get it. So I think that was a little bit of a problem on their end, especially with like scalpers nowadays. Like they could have like thought of a way to distribute this in a better way. But getting back to like the actual comic book at hand, it came out, and for the most part, maybe it's just me, but I feel like I didn't see a lot of buzz about this comic. Now, obviously, this is kind of like old news at this point. Who cares? I think a lot of people are just waiting for the Batman Deadpool one with Grant Morrison and Dan Mora, which I can't blame them. Mostly due to the fact that Zeb Wells is the writer for this crossover, more than likely just because he is Marvel's top writer at this point, or at least one that Marvel really likes because he probably does what they say. And honestly, I feel like the people who decided to skip this crossover, like the Marvel part, honestly, I think they kind of missed out because, well, I understand people's hesitancy to really like get this crossover because of Zeb Wells' name on it. I feel like they missed out on a lot of good stuff. So starting off, I'm not going to go into every single story in great detail, but I will start off with the first crossover, which is the titular one, the Deadpool Batman crossover. Now, this one is kind of what I expected it to be when I heard that Zeb Wells was going to be on this run, which was it's going to be a very standard Batman story with Deadpool in it. And I was pretty on the money, I'm gonna be honest. That's kind of what the story is. Essentially what it was is that Joker stole a lot of Joker toxin. Deadpool gets hired by Joker. He screws with Batman a bit, but at the end of the day, Deadpool and Batman team up to deal with the Joker. That's essentially it. But to me, what really made the story a lot better than I thought it was going to be was the humor. And I've heard some about this when it comes to Zeb Wells' Hellions run. And now, kind of like his Spider-Man run, I have not really read anything of his. I skipped out on the Amazing Spider-Man run just because like everyone said it was bad. So I was still a little confused as to why people kept reading it. But when it came to his Hellions run, from what I heard, it was pretty good and pretty humorous. I could be wrong on that front, but again, that's what I heard. And I feel like you can definitely see Zeb Wells' comedic chops within this story when it comes to Deadpool's interaction with Batman, because Batman is just the straight man all the way through. He has no time for Deadpool. He does not care, but Deadpool is just constantly slinging some pretty good jokes. Like, they don't really get old, but that's also probably because the story isn't that long. But like they also just don't go for the obvious ones as well. Like there's even a comment in the story of Deadpool mentioning Robin and being like, "Oh, your tout young little boy that you bring along on your adventures." I'm sure everyone made a ton of jokes about that, so I'm not gonna even bother. He also like makes jokes that are kind of like standard. Like he essentially also like kind of jokes about like the standard tropes when it comes to these crossovers of them being evenly matched when Batman just beat the shit out of him and shit like that. I think they did it quite well. There was a funny gag that some people might not like, but I thought was pretty funny, where essentially Joker was making fun of therapy talk, which is what they use to explain why he even has Deadpool as his partner to begin with. And I also like how they kind of bring the story all together with Batman using Deadpool against Joker and it turning, in on itself. It was a good story overall, just nothing special. It's a fun story, nothing to really write home about, but I appreciated the humor for what it was. Greg Capullo is a really good artist, and it's not the best of his work, I'll say that. Deadpool kind of looked pretty standard. If anything, he had very little eyes, which I noticed. That was the only thing I really noticed in his version of Deadpool. But overall, just a fun story. But that isn't the only story that was shown in this comic, with there being 6 other stories in this crossover. Some of them, which are like legitimate crossovers, and the final one of them being a new amalgam character. But starting off, we have the Captain America Wonder Woman crossover, and this one got leaked on Twitter before the comic came out, and I'm not gonna get into that whole controversy because really I could summarize that whole controversy on Twitter the same way that I could summarize every single controversy when it comes to a leaked comic that finds its way on Twitter, which is people only saw a few panels, took it out of context, and made baseless assumptions off the story, only to be proven wrong as to where that story was going. But essentially, this story revolves around Captain America and his relationship, well, friendship. They never say they're explicitly a couple, but their friendship throughout the years. And essentially, this takes place on a Earth where they always have crossed over, where DC and Marvel characters coexist, because the first one, the Batman Deadpool crossover, they explicitly state in the story that they exist on different Earths. This is DC's Batman and Marvel's Deadpool from different Earths. Now they're having a crossover. But with Captain America Wonder Woman, it's very explicitly stated that this is an Earth where they always coexisted. Wonder Woman was there in World War II. She met Captain America. She was there when Captain America came out of the ice. They fought together during the Crisis on Infinite Earths and when Galactus came. And then they also are shown fighting together like during, I guess, like a story where Thanos and Darkseid merge with a living tribunal or something. But it's a nice little story of like their relationship throughout the years, especially when it comes to like their darkest moments. But again, I'm not gonna really get into it. It was written by Chip Zdarsky, who I really like. I like Chip as a writer, and was drawn by Terry Dodson, who is amazing. Terry Dodson's art is incredible. But yeah, overall, just a really good story. The next one is very much just like a short story. Honestly, it could have been shorter in my opinion, especially when you look at some of the other stories that are a part of this that only have like 2 pages. But it's essentially a little fun adventure with Crypto and Jeff the Landshark play volleyball. And that's just kind of it. That's just all the story is. It's written by Kelly Thompson and drawn by Yuri Hiro. I think that's how you pronounce them. But like, they're an amazing artist. I love their like very soft cartoony style when it comes to Jeff and Crypto. But it was a 6-page story that honestly could have been cut to 3, in my opinion, especially considering that there's one crossover in this event that only has 2 pages that could have used more. The next story was called The Red and the Green. It was a Green Arrow Daredevil crossover written by Kevin Smith, a man who has had tenured runs on both characters, and drawn by Adam Kubert, a very talented artist who has worked on both DC. I believe has he worked on DC Comics before? I might be wrong. I think he's only been a Marvel artist actually. He's drawn for DC. He's drawn for DC. I'm mistaken. Oh yeah, oh my god, I completely forgot he drawn the Batman vs. Predator comic. That's insane. But yeah, Adam Kubert, a very like skilled, very very experienced artist in both companies. The Red and the Green, essentially what happens in the story is that both Green Arrow and Daredevil are fighting ninjas in Hell's Kitchen, like DC's League of Shadows and Marvel's The Hand. They're fighting them in Hell's Kitchen. It leads to a meetup between Daredevil and Green Arrow, where Daredevil believes that Green Arrow's Hawkeye for when they first meet. But it's pretty fun. I love the dialogue. Kevin Smith with dialogue is amazing, so not really surprising. Count Vertigo shows up, a villain who is able to like really use Daredevil's senses against him, and it leads to Green Arrow, after being like punched into what's the gym that Matt's father used to be in. I think it was Fogwell's gym. After Green Arrow gets hit into Fogwell's gym, he takes one of like Jack Murdoch's old boxing gloves, puts it in his arrow, and shoots it at Count Vertigo. It was really fun. Short story, good dialogue, great art. just, I mean, if you're gonna do a Daredevil Green Arrow crossover, you need to have Green Arrow use a boxing glove arrow that's also Jack Murdoch's, because like that just writes itself. So that was really fun. Now we get to the, I would argue, the most controversial crossover in this comic, the Green Lantern Rocket Raccoon crossover. And to me, I think people need to fucking just chill out. I think people need to get over themselves, just realize that this is not meant to be taken seriously. So it was written by Al Ewing and drawn by I want to pronounce this, Daigaruin. I think that's, I'm not sure. I'll put it on the screen how it's written just in case. But essentially what this comic was is that the Green Arrow Corps and the Guardians of the Galaxy agreed to do like a partner swap where the Guardians take Hal and the Lanterns take Rocket, who gets Hal's ring. And it's really fun. Honestly, it's just a good time in the short span that the story goes on, because it's only 2 pages. And so essentially what happens is like Rocket gets the ring and he just does a bunch of stuff that the Guardians don't like. He shoots Sinestro, he robs a casino with Green Arrow, and essentially the Guardians are just like, alright, we need to call the Guardians, we need to get our guy back. And when they call him up to be like, hey, this isn't working, the Guardians are like, hey, this isn't working either. Your guy got the fucking Infinity Gauntlet and now he's parallax. And it's just fucking crazy how much they fit into these 2 pages of like Rocket just being a menace and then Hal becoming parallaxed again with the Infinity Gauntlet that he got off of Thanos. And now this one made its ways around Twitter after it came out. This was not leaked beforehand. And so many people were just like bitching about it. Of like this thing that is not meant to be taken seriously, just meant to be a, you know, silly little joke. And so many people were acting as if this was the worst thing ever. Like, this is the worst thing they could have ever done to Green Lantern. They need to get Hal away from his parallax past. And so, like people taking this way too seriously. And I just want to say, if you just can't sit down and just enjoy how fun these stories are, like, this isn't anything serious. This isn't continuity. This isn't, you know, going to affect Green Lantern's status within the main DC universe. Just shut up. I just can't take people. I can't. Oh god. There are just some comic fans who just take this shit way too seriously when they don't need to. Like, this is just supposed to be a fun little thing. It's only 2 pages. Who cares? Why are you taking it this seriously? Just have, if you don't like it, whatever, move on. But acting as if this was like a fucking crime done to your favorite character, who gives a fuck? So the next story that came out of this was Dark Knight Returns Batman versus Old Man Logan, written and drawn by Frank Miller. You heard me correctly, by the way. Frank Miller, a man who wrote and drew Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, and who has worked on Wolverine in the past. Now here's the thing. If you were to look at this story, Wolverine does not look like Old Man Logan at all. He just looks like Wolverine from when Frank Miller drew Wolverine last. During the 80s. He looks just straight up like Wolverine. He doesn't look like Old Man Logan at all. I can't even tell you what the story is because there isn't one. It's just they fight. That's it. And then Batman blows Wolverine up. And the dialogue, it's Frank Miller dialogue, but not like Dark Knight Returns dialogue, where it's like, it's weird in some parts, but it's like overall good. It's just modern Frank Miller dialogue. At least he doesn't say the R word. But he is like, it's just all over the place. It's like every single stereotype that you could imagine. And I think some part of him is kind of making fun of himself in this. In all honesty, like, there's a onomatopoeia that's just punk, because Frank Miller loves to use the word punk a lot. And I honestly think that was a choice done by him of being like, I'm going to poke fun of myself a bit. But overall, you know what? I'm just kind of glad that it exists. Even though it's kind of nothing, I'm kind of glad that it exists. His art, in some circumstances, I feel like is better than some of his recent examples. You know, honestly, I do feel like he was kind of trying with this. But honestly, I think what really did help make this story a little bit better was the coloring, which I also heard a lot of people bitch about as well. But honestly, I think the colorists just try to do the best with what they were given. Alex Sinclair was the colorist for this, and you know, I would like to applaud them for their work. And then the final story of this crossover, the introduction of a new Amalgam character who is in the Amalgam universe from the 90s, Logo. And when I first read this, I went up to every single one of my comic book friends because they had not read it yet, and I asked them, who do you think Logo is? And most of them got right away that it's a combination of Lobo and someone else, but they could not tell that it was meant to be a amalgam character of Lobo and Logan, Wolverine. So another Wolverine story. I mean, we had 2 Batman stories, but whatever. And here's the thing, I kind of dig it. His design is really cool. His story is very short. He kills Coltron, which is a combination of Cobra and Ultron, who already existed in the Amalgam universe. This comic doesn't really even like create anybody new outside of Logo. It was written by Ryan North, who had a very great Fantastic Four run from what I heard. I still need to read it. I'm really behind on like modern comics. But it was also drawn by Ryan Stegman, who had a great run on Venom with Donny Cates. So yeah, it was just like great overall. It was like a fun little story where Logo kills Coltron while he's leaving like an intergalactic bar, and on his way out he also blows up the Thanos side copter, you know, the amalgamized version of Thanos and Darkseid, you know, his helicopter, this Thanos side copter. And then he also says that he's going after Super Soldier, who's the amalgam character of Superman and Captain America, and that his bike is called the Weapon Triple X. This was interesting. This entire crossover was interesting. I don't really know what to really say about all of this, because like, do I think it was the greatest thing ever? No. Like, do I think this is gonna go on like the Hall of Fame of greatest comic books ever? No. But it was really fun. That's the thing. That's really what I want out of these crossovers. Is like, if you can tell like a very like deep story involving these 2 characters who never get to be on the same panel, that's great. But like, the problem with it is that like with this format of crossovers, you don't get a lot of time to play with that, so you might as well just try to do something fun, because this was just a one shot. It's not like they're gonna continue the story. Like the Deadpool Batman story wraps up pretty nicely, and it does leave some, you know, room to get like sequelized, or maybe it'll carry over into the next one, but we don't know for sure if that's what's going to happen, or if the Grant Morrison Dan Mora story is going to be its own thing. But I feel like for what we were given, we got some pretty good material out of it. I think, again, my only problem with this is that I feel like there could have been more time dedicated to other stories instead of the volleyball game between Crypto and Jeff. That's really my only negative. It's like, I feel like we could have taken maybe half of those pages away to give it to something else, like the Green Lantern and Guardian story. But from what we were given, it was very nice. Everyone did their part very well. I think this was a solid 8, in all honesty. In terms of like critically speaking, personally, I loved it. I would give it a 9. But like, critically speaking, I would probably say a 7 instead of an 8. Because again, it doesn't like do anything really out there, but it's just fun overall. And we'll have to see with the Grant Morrison Dan Mora crossover, you know, what they do that's different from this. I can only imagine how weird they're gonna get with that, especially with Grant Morrison at the helm. But we'll have to wait and see, because that doesn't come until next month. So that's all I really gotta say. Hello everyone, thank you for watching today's video. If you would like to see other videos like this, please leave a like and subscribe down below. If you would like to see me talk about more political stuff, then you can check out my main channel, Fruity Soar. And if you would like to see me play video games, I have a channel called Fruity Soar Gaming where you can check out those videos there. Anyways, that's all I have for today, and I will see you all next time.